Okay, hello. My name is Natalie. I'm the president of the PRO.ACT Fest, and today I will speak to the representative of the Optimist Creations story with the performance top story, which take part in our festival. Could you introduce yourself?
Hello, yes, I'm Sebastian Michael. I'm the writer of Top Story, and I'm effectively the founder of Optimist Creations. Optimist Creations is more of a label perhaps than a company. We're not a standing company. We don't have an ensemble or a team of people who always work together. It's more a loose connection of professionals who come together when we do a production. And Top Story is one of the pieces we did here in London at the then quite famous Old Vic tunnels underneath Waterloo Station.
Could you tell me more about your performance? Maybe the story, how it was created, or maybe idea that it's come to your mind, or why you decided to create it.
Yeah, certainly. Top Story really is I call it an apocalyptic comedy. And it is really about the end of the world. It takes a snapshot, if you like, of two young people in London who are awaiting the end of the world. So it's slightly pointed. I wouldn't call it satirical, but it's clearly slightly overstated situation whereby you have a meteorite hitting Los Angeles in 7 days, and these two guys are in London awaiting the catastrophe that will end all life on Earth. So it predates the very famous film that was released relatively recently on Netflix about which was kind of a metaphor for the climate catastrophe. I wrote it quite a few years ago, and the idea simply was, what would you actually do, and how would you treat the idea of the world coming to an end if you weren't going to make it into a disaster movie? You can kind of imagine how Hollywood, or how a mainstream studio, how a mainstream cinema director, film director would treat the story, and how mainstream writers would do that. But I felt intrigued by what would actually happen internally, and how two ordinary friends who are simply very good friends would deal with the situation. And what I came to, not so much as a conclusion, but as perhaps an idea, is that most likely you wouldn't really do all that much because the event is so overwhelming. And so I wrote this play, and it received a rehearsed reading at the ICA here in London, at a little festival that was organized at the ICA quite a few years ago. And following on from that, we then got a production together at the Old Vic tunnels. And the Old Vic tunnels was an ideal situation in a way, because there are these cavernous, old, disused railway tunnels, storage tunnels underneath the station. So it had a very strange claustrophobic feel. You could hear the trains rumbling overhead. It was quite damp, and it was very cold in January, so it had a bit of a bunker feel to it. And we recorded it there, luckily. And then when COVID happened, because all of this happened a few years ago, so I should maybe point out, this is not recent. We did the production in 2013 at the Old Vic tunnels, the live production, and recorded. And nothing really happened after that. And then, of course, COVID came along, and COVID meant that here in London, as elsewhere, theatres simply had to close. Everything stopped because of lockdown and because of the normal measures that you would know about. And I thought immediately, the moment that our Prime Minister, then Prime Minister, still just about, announced that theatres had to close, I thought, well, if people can't go to the theatre, we can take theatre to people. And we've got this recording, so I just made it available on YouTube the day after. And it's been available ever since. And then Scene Saver started up as it kind of came out of the whole COVID crisis as well. And when they started up, we joined them because it was quite a surprise to me how many people watched this play online. And my hunch was that maybe a few dozen people would sit through a whole play online. But this wasn't the case. It's got tens of thousands of hits, and we know that by now more people have watched the whole play from beginning to end online than ever came to the theatre. So it's received a second lease of life, which of course was a thrilling thing to experience. And then so that's how it all came to be online and to be part of Scene Saver, and that's also how we came to be part of the PRO.ACT Festival 2022, of course.
So the idea was yours to participate, or it was Scene Saver who, I don't know, send you invitation or something like this?
They sent an invitation. I confessed that I did not know about the PRO.ACT Festival until Scene Saver sent an email to us, as I imagine they sent this to everybody who was then available on their platform, asking whether we would want to be a part of PRO.ACT 22. And I thought, absolutely we do. I mean, if this is one way in which we can, connect more widely with a more European audience anyway, that would be in itself a nice thing to do and something that I would find exciting. But of course, I as many other people perhaps, feel quite paralyzed by what's happening in your country. You sit here and you watch what has unfolded over the last 9 months by now, nearly. And well, actually, I appreciate it's been since 2014 or before then. I realized that we have a somewhat limited view of this, and that we have not been paying enough attention to what's been going on. And you feel as a creative, as somebody who works in the creative arts and who's trying to write and to create theatre, you feel somewhat paralyzed and somewhat incapacitated, because there's really not that much you can do. You can go to a benefit concert here, or donate something, or book a walk in Odessa or something, but there's very little that you feel you can actually constructively do. And so when the opportunity came along to say, well, yes, connect with other people who are also doing theatre, and with audiences who would ordinarily be going to the theatre in Kyiv but can't now, but they can still watch online. That's exactly why we put it online when COVID happened. So it seems like a natural and in some way, although slightly helpless, still positive response to the catastrophe that's happening there. And that's so yeah, I didn't need to think about this very hard.
Mm-hmm. We are happy to have you in our festival, and really your play somehow resonate with the situation that is happening right now. Kind of lots of people, like you explained, that your play was filmed and firstly shown in the tunnels, and lots of people in our country, like since the February, partially live in the subway. So
Yes,
subways
yes.
or in the basement. So yeah, kind of it can give some perspective to those who closed in the small premises, and think what can be the next. And plus the idea to organize this festival this year came to our mind because our theater become a shelter for people. We are placed
Indeed,
in the
yes,
basement,
yes.
yeah, so we have our
Yeah.
shelter, and then decided why not to have this festival. So we're happy, really happy to have you. Maybe you may share some your future plans.
Yes, although they are somewhat vague, because COVID has put a stop in the middle there, which lasted a good 2 years. But there are a couple of plays that are, I mean, I have 2 plays in particular that I now feel I want to bring to the stage. And there's another one which we've already done, which we did after Top Story, actually, which I'm very, very fond of as a project, and which I also feel needs a further exposure. And maybe I start with the last one, because I'm so much in this right at the moment. I subsequent to Top Story wrote a play called The Sonneteer, which is about the relationship that we don't know for certain, but we think may have happened or may have taken place between William Shakespeare and the fair youth, a young man, a young nobleman in Elizabethan England. And this relationship is reflected very strongly and very vividly and grippingly in these sonnets that William Shakespeare wrote. He wrote a total of, as we know, we have 154 of them, and 126 of them are either directly or indirectly related to, or at least connectable to, this fair youth, this mysterious, or maybe not so mysterious young man. And another 26 or so are connected to a very mysterious lady, dark lady. And I'm particularly fascinated with the relationship between William Shakespeare and this young nobleman, because it is so contemporary. It's such a complex contemporary relationship. There is jealousy, there is passion, there is infuriation, there is frustration with how his life is going professionally. And all these things come out in these sonnets. So I have attempted to build these sonnets into a play, and we did this back a few years ago after Top Story at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, and I acted in it together with another actor and was directed by Ross Phillips, who did this with us, and then nothing happened to it again. And I'm now really back into these sonnets in a very big way, and I'm intending to do a podcast on the sonnet starting in September. Probably under the title Sonnet Cast. So this is now in preparation. And in connection with this, I want to publish the play, but also I would like to give it a second airing, because it needs to be a bit longer than it was then. We had to squeeze it all into an hour, which is terribly short for a very complex relationship and for very dense language, because I don't know how familiar you or people who are watching this video might be with the sonnets, but they are these wonderful, incredibly intricate, dense pieces of gorgeous poetry, and to bring them into play, you need a bit of space, you need a bit of time, and we didn't quite have enough time. So that's the one project that is now lining up for the coming years, if not months. And then there is a play that is again a comedy that I've written, which I would like to bring to the stage. I'm now actively looking for a producer. So if any producers in the UK or elsewhere are watching, I am contactable and approachable for an existential comedy, as I call this. This is really a very, very topical piece, very much connected to the if you like, to identity politics. And I feel these are strong, important, really necessary discussions that we need to have. I also have a feeling that maybe we are losing sight a bit sometimes of some very important things. And so there's a kind of a contemporary satire here, which incorporates a couple of cabaret elements and is really essentially funny and tries to poke fun a little bit at ourselves in quite a gentle way, but also in a quite acerbic way, maybe. And so it's a little bit topical and a little bit maybe controversial, although I hope not in a derogatory or bad way. The intention is that it ought to be thought-provoking. And then there is another play that we've done a rehearsed. Actually, no, we did a briefly rehearsed reading online with, and that's again takes us back into a bunker. Actually, it's about a group of young people who I don't know why I'm attracted to bunkers. It's not something, but it is about a group of young people who decide to take themselves away from the network entirely, i.e., lock themselves into a completely sealed environment in which they can survive for about a year plus, in fact they go for 18 months, and where they cannot possibly connect with the outside world, simply so as to reassess everything and also to work on a piece of software that would be pretty much impossible to work on out in the open, because it's not allowed anymore at that time when they're doing this. And so, and things of course go wrong, as they must, and then they are faced with a very, very difficult choice, which essentially leads to two of them having to quite literally sacrifice themselves for the others and for the cause. So it's a very serious play, but it has great elements of comedy as well. But in contrast, maybe to some other writing I've done, this really has a nucleus that is really quite disturbing, and I feel it kind of needs to be because of where it positions itself in the greater technological and cultural context. So these are the three pieces that are lining up, although I can't unfortunately give you a time frame for this because it's very difficult at the moment to plan anything, although it's getting easier because now we are at least slowly moving out of the COVID situation, or we have more or less moved out of it, I suppose.
Yep. Of course, like nowadays it's always difficult to plan something, but we will follow you, like I guess in the Facebook or somewhere, and maybe to see like your performances, or who knows, maybe one day you will show it on the Kyiv stage.
I wish for nothing more than that to be possible. Seriously, I mean, if I could express one great wish and hope that I have at this point, it is that we will soon be in a position to actually come to Ukraine and come to Kyiv and to work with you and visit you there, because I can only pray and hope that there will soon be an end to what you're having to go through. Yeah.
Okay, that was like really nice to meet you here.
Thank you very
And
much. Good to meet you too.
Yeah, bye bye to our like people who will watch us.